Hubgrippers, it is time for another episode on the Hubgrass, the only Disney podcast out there that asks you, hey, did you remember that there's a Pope in the Cars movies? Implying that there's a Catholic Church in the Cars movies, implying that there was a car Jesus. What car do you think Jesus was? I personally think that it was a Ford Bronco. I don't know, that's just me. Anyways, I'm your host, Mason Betterly, here as always with Matt Arterbury. Say hi for the folks out there in Radio Land. Matt?
How you guys doing today?
Due to the long weekend we just had and some other circumstances, we are recording this on Tuesday morning, meaning we are not drained yet by the day. So I am sitting here drinking some lovely Kona Blend Polynesian Resort coffee. What do we got in store for these people today, Matt?
Yeah, I think especially as we are now in the month of June, it's ever important that we give you our tips and tricks, our top 5 do's and don'ts, mainly do's, regarding your next trip. If you're taking a trip in the next week, 2 weeks, months, we want to make sure that you're prepared for everything that you'll be experiencing and the potential obstacles and kind of the fun side, but also the things you should be prepared for.
Definitely. And so we got some do's, some don'ts, and they're just sort of compiled from just our years of going. How many years have you been going? When was your first trip?
So my first trip was in 99, I believe, or 2000. 2000 was my first trip. So I was around 7 years old, my first trip, and then just kind of gone throughout the years. There was really no pattern from when I went. It was like every other year. It was kind of when we had the time and had saved up enough to go. But in my recent adult life, I've been going once a year for the past 5 years, almost 4 years now. I go for a week-long trips. I go for day trips. It just really depends on what we're doing that year. I also went on a business trip one time. I took a night to an after-hours event. So I would say my more recent young adult life, I had definitely gone a lot more and have spent a lot of time in the parks. So yeah, I just love going.
You get to go on a business trip?
Yeah, it was pretty lucky because I was in dental software sales prior to the pandemic, and our trade show was in Orlando, and I stayed at one of the Disney partner hotels. I forget the name. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head right now, but it was right near Disney Springs, and I had my whole day was consumed of being at the trade show, being at my booth, and talking to potential clients and suppliers and things like that. And then in the evenings, it was around 5 o'clock is when the show ended, so it was kind of you had free reign over what you want to do in the evening. And I was lucky enough to have a Villains After Hours event scheduled.
Oh, no way.
Villain After. Yeah, it was awesome. So I was like, hey, I need to go to this because I'd not been to an after-hours event, because typically when we went, there was either in the holiday season when those events kind of were coming to an end, or in the summertime when there's not really many events, period, in the summer. So I decided, hey, I need to hop on this event because I'd seen so much about the after-hours events, that especially the Villains one, that I really wanted to try the different snacks, go on the different overlays, things like that. And so I said, I have to go. And so basically, I got off left my booth for the day, and I was able to get into the park by 7, a couple hours early prior to the actual event, and then stayed there till I think like 1 or 2 in the morning. So it was a long next day, definitely, but it was totally worth it to be at that event. So
yeah, I can imagine. I've always wanted to go to
Yeah.
one of those after hour kind of villains events. I mean, I try and I guess I imagine it would be somewhat like the Not So Scary, but just a lot more extra.
Yeah, and from what I've seen between the two, it's definitely a lot more. I don't know. I think you get more at the Halloween event, honestly,
Really?
because there's no candy lines. The overlays for the rides are very similar. I think the only thing different is the snacks and the apparel. Um, I think are the big differentiating factors. I think there's less people at the Villain After Hours event versus the Halloween events. Um, so crowd levels. I think they're very similar events, just different offerings.
Yeah.
And then also the stage show is different as well. The castle stage show is
Yeah, yeah,
different.
yeah. I got you. I
Yeah,
got you.
yeah.
So, I
But
mean,
yeah, yeah,
so you're being offered, let's say, just for instance, you got you being offered a free ticket to one or the other villains or Not So Scary. Which one in your opinion would
sure.
you go to?
At this point, I would love to go to Not So Scary because I've never been to one. So it's hard for me to differentiate the two.
Yeah.
Well, this year it's the Boo Bash, but
Yeah.
I think I would like to go to that one before I give my final review. But I would say as a newer fan of the villains, the villains were not really close. I was really close to the villains growing up. I was more on the hero side. I still am on the hero side, but I definitely have enjoyed learning more about the lore of the villains, and so that has definitely helped my love for that event. And I'm a big Hades fan, things like that. So as a big Hercules fan as well, so seeing the projections on the castle for that event were mind blowing throughout the whole night.
Yeah.
So the Villains After Hours event was definitely a highlight of all of my Disney trips. So I would like to go to a Not So Scary first before making that final distinction.
Yeah. I have it's crazy. I feel I I think I mentioned this in another episode. I'm used to going to Disney, around fall, around Halloween time. So I've been to Not So Scary, I think three times now.
Oh, nice.
Cause I don't know. There's just something about that time of year is just sort of Disney time for me, and I'm
Yeah.
a huge villains fan. I grew up with the villains being front and center. Because I don't know. I guess I'm just I've always been into spooky Disney. I married a girl who's into spooky Disney, so that's just sort of where we're
Nice.
at. We
Yeah.
follow our house decoration schedule follows Disney. So August 1st, our house is Halloween decked out. And then November 1st, our house is Christmas decked out. So, and this year I think we're putting up a Halloween tree. So,
Oh, nice.
we're all about the villains. I've loved, and that was the main draw for like Fantasmic for me. I
Oh, sure.
I
Yeah.
still would, and you know how we're wrapping up the show, so we're gonna touch on this a little bit more later. But I still love the rumors about a villain's park or a villain's land. I would love
Sure.
that.
Yeah.
But excuse me, getting into the meat and potatoes of our episode today. I know you had some dues that you kind of wrote down on our list for our show notes today. So what was number one?
Yeah, so for me, and I think this is definitely a big part of the Disney community in general, is what you wear to the parks. I think so much of kind of early Disney was just kind of wearing normal street clothes, but now, as kind of like a modern fan, a big part of it is what are you wearing to the parks? It's not just going to the rides and going on the rides and just having the snacks, but it's like you're going to like a prom, you're going to a big event, and you want to dress for the occasion. And so part of that is what you wear to the parks. I think a lot of individuals are into Disney bounding now, which is dressing like your character without wearing a costume. But also for me, I really like to dress in a way that I feel like I'm immersing myself in a particular land at that park or kind of dressing the part. So let's say I'm going to, so I'm going in July, and a big part of my fandom is Star Wars. So what I'm planning to wear will be um, would was is basically immersing myself in that land, or at least in the Star Wars universe. So I have some really great T-shirts and hats that I've bought from a company called Heroes and Villains that specialize in kind of in-world merchandise. I would say where I have some kind of old military-looking T-shirts and hats that look like I had taken part in either like the Battle of Endor or the Battle of Yavin.
That's cool.
That have like these like military style patches. So I plan on wearing those. That's kind of the plan right now. Who knows what I'll decide in the next few weeks with my kind of purchasing spree that I'll be going on with apparel. But I really love to not necessarily bound, but definitely buy things that are kind of in universe. I talked about this a few weeks ago about a shirt I bought at Boxed Lunch, which is another great place I recommend looking for
yeah,
Disney
fantastic.
apparel. I love Boxed Lunch, and it was a soccer jersey that had Pizza Planet on the front of it. So I really felt like that's something that someone in the one of the humans in the Toy Story universe would wear, because I'm sure Pizza Planet sponsored potentially a soccer team, something like that. So I really recommend looking through Boxed Lunch, Heroes and Villains if you're a Star Wars fan, Hot Topic, places like that that really specialize in unique Disney apparel versus the standard stuff you buy from Shop Disney. Because I when I was in Hollywood Studios wearing that soccer jersey, I got probably about 10 to 15 people stopped me, asked me where I found that shirt, because it was so unique and so beyond just a normal T-shirt. They're like, "This is something really cool. Like, where'd you find that?" I said, "Sorry, you have to go to Boxed Lunch. It's not in the parks."
Yeah.
But another big recommendation I have is that make sure you wear really comfortable shoes. And I have a pair of that I just recently purchased, waterproof shoes that are like they're like waterproof running shoes, because if you're going in especially the summer, late fall, like even early fall months, rain is definitely something you'll experience every day, if not every other day. And oftentimes Disney, especially in the Magic Kingdom, those pathways, those roads aren't well. There's not great drainage on those walkways, and you often find yourself walking through a couple inches of water, walking to your certain particular attractions. So I always recommend that as well. So find some really great, comfortable apparel, but also find unique stuff. Find stuff that really immerses you into the story of a particular land. Especially if you go to Animal Kingdom, grab some Avatar merch or some kind of safari merch as well. But also the essential is finding really great comfortable shoes, and make sure you wear them before you go to the park so you can break them in, so you're not getting shin splints or blisters from from walking around too much.
I have only had, just going back to the whole rain thing, I have only had I can only remember one time where I was in a park and it rained. And that's
wow.
because, now I think it probably has a lot to do with the time of year that, my family
Sure.
went, or me and my wife went. But growing up, we always had what were called the magic rain slicks. So
Oh yeah.
we always said that they would ward off the rain spirits. So we always brought them, and we never needed them. And so
No, yeah.
we're sort of superstitious in that way.
Sure. No, and I think it's essential, especially because like if you're a summer vacationer, is that's when the rain is really the worst.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
my wife and I have bought the additional rain covers for our strollers. We have rain jackets for the kids now, because we went in October, and so we really last time we went was this past October. We really didn't think we were going to experience much rain
Yeah.
while we were there, and middle of the day, it was a torrential downpour, and this was it was more of an impromptu trip. We were down in St. Pete, and we decided that we had an extra day, and we just bought tickets, got park passes, and went to Magic Kingdom. And we were going to we're walking to Haunted Mansion, and the sky just opened up, and we didn't have any rain gear or anything like that. And so didn't even bring an extra set of clothes. We had some extra clothes for the kids, but I fortunately had a rain jacket with me, and that was passed on to my wife and kids to keep them dry. And the stroller we had at the time didn't have great rain coverage as well, so that was just an absolute mess. And so we definitely learned from that experience to make sure that we're prepared. Otherwise, we would be having a bad day. And also, fortunately, this time we're staying at a resort hotel. So if we needed to go back and change, but at that point we were just there. We drove there, parked in the parking lot, and we're just kind of stuck in the park until we were planning on leaving. So
that's never any fun. Then you're stuck in Columbia Harbor House, just kind of watching it rain, and you buy a lobster roll, and then that's it. What else are you gonna do? So
exactly.
Actually, actually, that was closed when we were there. They actually,
oh really?
Yeah, no, they were running the line for Peter Pan's flight through Columbia Harbor House. It was insane. It was insane. But also, Columbia Harbor House is like my favorite quick service place. So I was just devastated. And then we found out that they were serving the Columbia Harbor House menu at Tomorrowland Terrace, but only till like 4 o'clock. So we were rushing there, and it was like we didn't even know that it was until 4 o'clock, and we showed up there at like 4:15, and everything was gone. We're like, what happened? It was crazy. It was crazy. As we come out of pandemic, it's just
No, that's funny. We're at Columbia Harbor House because that's like a recent discovery for me and my family. I never gone to Columbia Harbor House until probably about 4 or 5 years ago, or actually one of my first trips kind of back, because we'd heard about it, and I was like, why have I not known about this before? Because I love lobster rolls. I love kind of that like East Coast style of eating. And I've always been a fan of Liberty Square, just kind of what it stands for, and just kind of realizing that I've always just passed through in terms of food. Made me sad that I had not had that lobster roll before, but
well, kind of going off of food, and I'm gonna. I know we're kind of going off script of our list. I'm just gonna jump ahead one, and then we can go back to number 2.
No, go ahead.
But just going off of food, something that my family has always done is we have breakfast in the room, meaning that either we run out somewhere, grab a box of cereal or some pastries or something, and then from there, we just maybe grab some milk and obviously coffee necessities, because coffee is life. And just scarf that down really quick, and then head out to the parks in the morning. It's just always really worked for us. Budgetary wise, it's definitely helps. But it's just something that we do.
Yeah. No, and I think that's a really great piece of advice, because those of you who have gone to the parks know that breakfast is pretty minimal, or at least the options aren't that plentiful. Especially if you're like a savory breakfast fan. It's mainly a lot of pastries, cinnamon rolls. Sometimes people will eat cupcakes for breakfast, just because the breakfast. Yeah, sometimes the breakfast options aren't that apparent, because maybe they assume you'll eat. I think there's more breakfast options in the resorts, but at the parks they're very minimal, beyond coffee and pastries. So I would definitely recommend, if you're not planning to eat at your resort, you just want to get to the park to rope drop, have some granola bars in your backpack or something to eat for breakfast, or just scarf down a quick bowl of cereal before you go, or even have if you're staying in a DVC room and you have a microwave. I think most of the rooms have microwaves anyway. Have some breakfast sandwiches that you can warm up in the morning real quick before you walk out of your room, because breakfast at Disney World is definitely not the greatest.
Hot Pockets.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I can't really think of anywhere in the parks that I really love for breakfast. I could think of things like resorts. I could think of places I'm going for breakfast that I like. But other than maybe Sleepy Hollow Bakery, because I like their waffle, and maybe the Starbucks on Hollywood Boulevard in Studios. But there used to be a really great bakery in that, like, right across from the where the Starbucks is now. There was like a little alcove, and there was a bakery down there. But it's been closed for quite a few years now. So
Well, it's two quick thoughts on that. I guess one is, one quick thing. I think the reason why the Ronto wrap in Galaxy's Edge has become so popular, especially the breakfast one, is because it's finally a breakfast option that people enjoy and is more sustaining than a pastry from one of the bakeries. That's definitely been a big hit. Is that Ronto wrap at Ronto's Roasters at Galaxy's Edge? But two, what is your opinion on? And this might get into some hot takes here real quick. What is your opinion on people drinking Starbucks at Disney? Do you like that Starbucks is in Disney, or are you kind of a Joffrey's simp?
No, I'm not a Joffrey's person.
Okay.
I'm not.
Okay.
I don't. I mean, if I gave it half a thought, I might care. But at the end of the day, honestly, if you look back at the history, of Disney, they've always had deals with other coffee companies. I mean, way back, like almost to the parks, to Disneyland's opening. They've always had that. So I don't think it's a big deal. It doesn't ruin my immersion. I think the way they, decorate the Starbucks has always been tasteful. And so it doesn't really stand out too much to me. My wife loves Starbucks, and it's so I know for a fact we were there like 3 or 4 times, just the Main Street one on our last trip. We had 2 days there, mind you, but even to go in, and because they have really good water, they have like a different water filtration system.
Oh yeah,
so
I love their water for sure.
Yes, so if you go in the middle of the day and you just go in and say, hey, I'll have a venti or a Trenta water, it does a lot. It's the best option to get free water basically in the park, and it's very good. So we just went and sat on the hub grass and drank our water, and sort of that midday thing.
And I guess for me is I love Starbucks. I'm there a few times a week, and I guess, and you're right, they do a good job theming it and things like that. I just wish that each park kind of had like a more of an artisanal coffee place beyond just the Starbucks. Just because I love cold brew and cold brew, pour over coffee. I have a French press. I love good coffee. Not saying Starbucks isn't great coffee, but I definitely like kind of more local coffee shops. But also, if you look at my Starbucks account, I'm there often anyway. But I would love to see maybe one of the lands in each park to have kind of a more of kind of a homemade artisanal feel for coffie as well. Because and for me, I don't think Joffrey's has a place in the park. If they're gonna have Starbucks, I think it's one of those things where it's like choose one or the other. Just so I think it's somewhat odd that they have two kind of mass-produced style
Yeah.
franchise coffee shops in the parks.
Well, it might be interesting, and obviously this would be quite a. They would have to seriously look into this, and it would be quite an investment. However, I know coffee, the coffee house. I seem to recall, like during the colonial era, coffee houses were actually quite a big deal. So it might be interesting to empty out maybe one of those gift shops in Liberty Square, and maybe invest in an organic, because they're doing all this kind of stuff every now and then.
Sure.
Sort of like an organic, actually Disney grown, like in their gardens or whatever.
That'd be amazing.
Even living with the land, you could even grow coffee beans and living with the land, and have it served in Liberty Square as like a actual artisan coffee thing, or you could do it as or you could do it in Animal Kingdom, or even just at Epcot.
Yeah.
And each of those would be themed differently, of course, but you could kind of do something like that, and you would sell, so like, even if you just sold the beans there, and it could be that's the only place to get it. So
Yeah, exactly.
you wouldn't have to worry about mass producing, just enough to run that one flagship store, or if you ran two in two different parks. I think maybe there's a legal issue somewhere there with some sort of contract they have with the different coffee companies.
Probably.
But I mean, that would definitely be something interesting, and that feels very on brand for the old, like when these parks were opening. It was like, oh, this is our thing that we do. So, I mean, you could try that.
No, yeah. And the only reason I bring it up is I feel like sometimes I see these Instagram influencers, YouTubers, like super excited that they have their pink drink on Main Street, and I'm just like I can go to my Starbucks and get the same thing. I don't know why it's like a big deal that Starbucks is there. Obviously, it's like some people like live on Starbucks, so it's like, thank God my lifeblood is here at Disney. But I think there's so many like other interesting foods and drinks at Disney to like be excited about, where people just like,
oh yeah,
just like lose their self over having their Starbucks at Disney. But it is what it is. It is what it is.
yeah.
But to move on to another tip that we have, is obviously food and things like that are really a big part of your Disney trip. Is that we want to make sure that you all plan ahead, because the days of casually walking into a table service restaurant to get a table have it's gone. It doesn't really happen anymore. With current reservation standards or requirements now, you have to make sure that you are putting in your dining reservation 60 days in advance. Prior to the closure to the pandemic, it was 180 days out. Now it's 60 days. So I think I like that a little bit more, because you're planning closer to your actual trip, where it's like 6 months in advance. I have no idea what I want to eat. Like, I have no idea what I'm eating tomorrow, kind of thing, or even later today for lunch or dinner, let alone 60 days in advance, or even 6 months in advance back then. So that's definitely key. And if Fast Passes come back, Fast Pass planning is definitely essential as well. That was 60 days in advance, which was it 60 or 90 days in advance, which was nice. Just because that was always fun to plan ahead, because you're like had something to look forward to. It was closer to the time of your resort trip, but it's essential, especially if you want to eat at a table service restaurant. My family and I, we're big table service fans, because we have 3 kids now, and so it's great for us to sit in somewhere and get out of the heat and get out of the crowds to kind of just wind down for a minute, outside of naps, things like that, and we'll get to that tip later on as well. But beyond the the food reservations, it's just good to plan your trip in general to make sure that you're prepared for everything that you'll experience.
Absolutely. No, I would agree. It's always good to kind of have, yeah, I mean, I think there's the stereotype or the, I don't know, but it's always funny that, those families that plan it's like a battle, like, we rise at dawn and we're going to hit this, and then we're going to hit this. But it, like, honestly, my family growing up was like that. Like, I'm not even joking. That was, it was like a military exercise.
Sure.
And,
No, and I think with the dawn of my Disney experience, that has kind of gone by the wayside because there's no running for paper fast passes anymore. There's no timing out your meal just the right time so you can hop in and get your name in, or even get sat. Reservations are essential for everything now, and I guess there's been interesting. This is an interesting rumor that came out this weekend about the future of Fast Pass, potentially going to more of like that Max Pass route.
What do you mean?
So I heard this weekend. This is not confirmed or anything like that. That there will be instead of Fast Pass, there'll be what's called Lightning Lane or like a Lightning Pass. It's similar to Universal's pass. I forget what it's called. Where you pay an additional like $90 to $100 a day to get in the Fast Pass line for everything. Where they'll be going away from the 3 free fast passes for resort guests, or you can just try to get on My Disney Experience and find one. That the only way to get in the fast pass lane or this new Lightning Lane will be to pay the additional $100 to whatever amount of dollars it is on top of your normal day ticket to get into the fast pass lane.
You're telling me
Lightning Lane.
You're telling me Robert Chapek, whatever what do you want to call him? You're telling me that this man is not only charging me $180 for my ticket, just to get in the gate. Now this man's gonna say let's tack on another $100 to get through the line quicker. I want to know. I want to know. I want to be a fly on the wall in the meeting, but I also want to know what planet that meeting's on. Because that is absurd, asinine, whatever you want to call it. That is ridiculous. That is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And they're... I mean, you know the whole thing that they're pricing themselves out of the market. I mean, like, but they are. It's not...
Yeah.
That is... insane.
So there's a precedence for this. So Universal has what they call their Express Pass, which is what this essentially would be. I actually have all the numbers pulled up right now for Universal. Yeah. Is that Universal has an Express Pass, which you could skip the regular line one time for a particular ride. At Universal for additional $69 a month or $69 a trip or a day. They have their Universal Express Unlimited, which is you can skip their line for any ride for unlimited times throughout the day for additional $89.99 per trip. Because Universal doesn't have Fast Pass. They just have either you can pay for this Express Pass or you just are on a normal standby queue. And it's basically you could choose when to use it. You can choose when to buy it. It's not like you have to like tack it on all of your days. I'm sure there's discount if you do it if you buy like all 4 days.
Yeah.
Express Pass. So there's precedence in the space that this might happen.
I don't like it. I don't like it, Chief. I don't like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know I do. Come to think of it, I do know that. I do remember growing up going to Six Flags and seeing they did have a pay, a pay pass. They have the Flash Pass because apparently they have the rights to DC, which is just weird.
Sure. Yeah.
We actually might get into that later on some other time because I know Disney. There's been a rumor going around that Disney's talking
I heard that
about
too.
DC.
I've heard that too.
But we won't worry about that. We'll worry about that. We'll jump off that bridge when
Sure.
we get there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's wild. I'm interested because I think most people wouldn't. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't pay for it. I think there's a large enough majority of people who wouldn't pay for it where it might be weird seeing things go back to the way they were, decades ago now, where there wasn't these fast passes and stuff, and the majority of people aren't using that. But I don't know. I can't speak for everybody. I'm just one person with one opinion.
Yeah. And I think logistically, many people have now become under the assumption, or at least the idea, that fast passes have hurt the standby queues. Because it makes standby queues longer. And I think if you're forced to pay for fast passes or this express pass, that it'll definitely curb the amount of people that will pay for it, and it will definitely make the standard standby queue more of a commonplace and less fast pass individuals. But so I was looking up at the number. According to Disney's website right now, the average day ticket is $109 per day, which is actually the same advertised day ticket price for Universal. So, because it's basically, when you talk about the space, you have to compare Disney and Universal at this point, because they're basically the top two competitors, top two individuals in the space.
Yeah, it's crazy because I mean I would say, it's obviously they're different, but I think we've gotten from the place where we're saying, Universal's catching up, to saying no, they've caught up. They're here. They're they've caught up.
Yeah. Especially once Epic Universe opens, it's going to be the comparison is definitely going to be apples and apples at that point.
Yeah. I'm very excited for that, actually.
Yeah, so am I. I think obviously Universal doesn't have as much theming. We look at the parks entire, but their newer lands obviously are definitely on par, if not better, sometimes than Disney parks. Yeah. So pricing wise, I think it makes sense, because Universal has done this for many years now, and they've had success. And if you choose to do this, then that's just how it's going to be. And I think part of it, and I had a big discussion I was on Pressing Issues this past week about the idea of pricing families out, or pricing certain demographics out, and just kind of has to start to become more and more expensive to go to Disney, to have the best experience. And I think this is kind of continuing laying that groundwork of Disney saying, if you want the ideal magical experience, you have to pay for it, which is unfortunate and things like that. But we are noticing in all the parks right now that the parks are very much crowded, or very overcrowded, and this might be Disney's way to kind of curb some of the crowds. Is that if you go as a normal day guest without buying these express passes, and in Disneyland they have Max Pass, so it's not like it's something that's out of the ordinary for even the Disney company to say, hey, if you want to have the best day where you can ride all the rides in a very efficient manner versus spending an hour, 2 hours in a queue, then that's just kind of how the shift in the dynamic of vacations are going to become, I think.
Yeah. I can think of one thing that might lower crowds in all the parks. A fifth gate?
Yeah.
Fifth gate.
And we know with, especially in this administration, we're not getting a fifth gate, because Chapek came out, I think this past week, the week prior, saying that the capital investment into the Disney parks is going to be a lot lower than normal. I think they're going to finish off their project right now, and I think we're kind of going to see a status quo until Chapek is ousted.
Which could be quick. It could be
quick.
Which
could be quick.
I know. Back in the 70s, early 80s, Ron Miller was only CEO for a year, and he he was Walt's son-in-law. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, obviously, I'm not saying that's exactly what's going to happen here, and
Sure.
but you know, it's going to be interesting to see because I mean, what Bob Iger had 10, he was like in from 2005 2006
Yeah.
to 20 early 20, so he
Yeah.
was that was what 15 years. And yeah, I think the average shelf life for the last two have been like 15-ish years.
Yeah.
So
No,
it's
yeah, I would love to see a Eisner kind of style takeover with JPEG. I think that's something that we'll potentially see, depending on how things go. Obviously, it's hard. It's hard to do that when the stock prices continue to rise in light of their success with Disney Plus and other parks opening, things like that. So it's hard to look at it from that perspective. But
yeah.
if guests become more and more dissatisfied, and if we see a steadily decline in park attendance once the post-pandemic hype is over, that might definitely change things.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe.
we should definitely go into the rest of our. We should probably,
Yeah, we definitely should.
we should probably go quick quick fire on the rest of these.
Yeah.
These
So
tips.
yeah, we'll go quick fire. So another thing is, if you have kids, if you're bringing them on your trip, always allot some time midday. I would say during the hottest part of the day. I would say somewhere between noon and 4, just to maybe take them back to their back to the resort and maybe have a quick break for the day and nap time. I think in that instance, if you are having those kids and that is sort of your schedule, rope drop is great. But I think if you're not doing that, if you don't have kids to worry about grinding down throughout the day, you're just the childless millennial, I guess. I wouldn't worry about rope drop as well. Kind of bouncing off that, I haven't done rope drop for quite a few years, and it's actually really nice in the morning, just sort of taking your time and getting your coffee and all that stuff. But yeah, if you have kids, definitely allot some time for them to, calm down, take a break, and then maybe get back into the parks for the evening from there. But
Definitely. I think as someone with 3 kids, it's essential to have that midday nap time. Especially if you are staying on property, it's even easier because, especially if you're at a monorail resort or even just in the resorts, it's pretty easy to get back to your room. That's for most the hotels. Some of the value resorts is a little bit hard to get back to, but it's pivotal. And especially if your kids aren't stroller nappers, you have to take them back to the room because it's something you might be able to get away with early in your trip, but towards the end of the trip, when they just start getting completely there's so much sensory overload and things like that they need some time to wind down. So I definitely recommend going back for a nap for sure. Especially with having kids as well, it's essential that kind of our final to-do tip is to set expectations for your trip.
yeah,
Because with kids, you might be able to ride all the rides that you want to ride or ride all the rides. And so it's essential, I think, even as someone that goes without kids, and especially in a busier time of year, is that you go through and set your expectations, like have 2 to 3, maybe 4 rides in each park that you want to ride, and ride those rides for sure. Make that's your top priority. And then if you get to ride the other things, those are all ancillary and kind of gravy on top. So I think it's really great to have those rides set aside. For me in Magic Kingdom, it's Splash Mountain, it's Big Thunder, Mine Train, Haunted Mansion, some of those your top 4 or 5 rides. Make sure you do those, and then if you can ride the other things, awesome. Typically, your on top gravy rides will be your dark rides because your kids can ride those with you, and so that's my thought on setting expectations for sure.
Yeah, and I definitely think, I would agree. It's good to have like a short list of the must rides. We did that on our last trip, especially in our Hollywood Studios day, because because quite frankly, I think they were over capacity that day.
Yeah.
I have some inside information that they were, but
Yeah.
regardless, so it got to a point. It was like, all right, what are the musts? And luckily, the crowds lightened up later in the day, so we were able to hit pretty much everything we wanted. But yeah, it's definitely good to set those expectations of, hey, at least we're going to hit Rise of the Resistance and Slinky Coaster and Smuggler's Run, and then make that, we'll get those done. Okay, cool. Now let's hit up Muppet Vision 3D, because we all need to appreciate Muppet Vision 3D, guys. Come on, we got to show up for the Muppets.
You got to thirst, yeah. I love that show, so it's essential on a trip.
Yeah, they need love. So,
Love.
but yeah, I think we're gonna just kind of end with those do's. I know we had some more. I know we had listed a few don'ts, but with the time we had left, I wanted to talk about something else. We both saw Cruella yesterday.
We did.
Yeah. So what did you think?
Yeah, so I've been very critical of the live action adaptations because they've kind of really just gone through and basically like shot for shot remakes for a lot of the classic animated movies. Obviously, they've all had their little bit touches. With Aladdin, we saw more of Jasmine's arc, which was interesting to see. She had her own song, things like that. Kind of that more women empowerment theme. And then in Beauty and the Beast, we saw more background on Belle's early life, which I think is really great that we touch more on do more of like prequel-y or give more backstory to certain characters, which I think is really where these live action adaptations shine. And I think with Cruella, that's really where the whole movie was a live action adaptation of kind of her life before where we see her in 101 Dalmatians.
Yeah.
And I think it's definitely one of the best live action movies. Maybe the best. I think I need to go through and rewatch some other ones again, but it was definitely the most exciting for me because I had no idea where it was going. Obviously, when you watch Beauty and the Beast, you know that they're all going to be turned back into humans. With Lion King, with Lion King, you know that Mufasa's dying and Simba's going to be the king. Aladdin, same thing. Jafar dies or becomes a genie, and genie gets released. Things like that. You know all where it's all going.
Yeah.
Where Cruella, you had no idea where it was going, other than obviously you know that she's the bad in that one movie. So for me, I was very much excited to watch the whole movie. I definitely didn't feel like I was like, oh, I know what's gonna happen next. So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Kind of over the top review.
I agree. I think this is the route they should be going with the live action adaptations, not trying to do the story, but finding, the interesting character and maybe looking at them, seeing where they were, or where they're going, or, kind of wherever on their trajectory in their path. Focusing on that, not just retelling the animated, story. And I heard this conspiracy theory that I kind of love about how the only reason we're really doing the remakes is because the Disney Vault is dead. So, so, and I think it was, I'm pretty sure it was Yesterworld that did the video. So so you should check it out if you haven't out there.
Yeah.
But it's basically saying, they don't have the cycles that they had, from the 40s to the 80s where they would do re-releases in the theaters. It's not even like they have the re-releases on video. So now they have to remake the movies so you go see them. Because, other than that, they're just making money off of Disney Plus now. So, but what I loved about this film is it took some risks. There were some really intense moments in it. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but, the acting was superb from pretty much everybody. I think, Emma Stone. It was just really giving her all to the role, and she did just a fantastic job with it. And another thing, I really, really loved the production design and the costume design. I'm going to be very disappointed if next Oscar season you don't at least see a nomination for Best Costume Design for this film, because it was just really phenomenal.
I agree.
Yeah.
It makes sense. It makes sense. It had to be really great because it's sort of a Devil Wears Prada spoof in a way, where it's all about fashion. So that you had to be really spot on to make that believable and real. Now, the one thing that I noticed, because I watched it on my phone on Disney Plus, and maybe it was less jarring for you in the theater, is that there was a lot of hand cam work. Or if like often like the camera operator was like shaking a lot, and obviously I think part of that was to keep the intensity and kind of keep some of that like grittiness of the movie. But I was almost getting like seasick at times watching it because I feel like it kept like just like really shaking, and obviously it was a directing choice, a camera work choice to have that shaky handheld feel. But I think they almost went too far into it. That was just kind of a production design note that I had. But the movie is beautiful otherwise. The colors are very bright, vibrant. The blacks and the whites really popped. It's really
Definitely.
It really is really essential with that motif.
Yeah.
And again, I think Emma Stone did a great job because I don't think it's really a spoiler, but there's a kind of this duality of Cruella between her like child self and her what she becomes towards the end of the movie, is that she really had to play two different roles at times, because she was she had like a dual personality to herself, and I think that was really well done. And I actually saw your TikTok this morning about it, and I definitely agree with you. Mark Strong was wasted in this movie.
Yeah, he just sort of pops up at the beginning, and I was like, wait, is that Mark Strong? And then he's just sort of sprinkled throughout the film, and he doesn't really do anything. I'm like, we could have done a lot more with him. I don't know about the character, but definitely him. He's a great actor. So,
because I saw him, and there is a twist with him towards the end, and I kind of saw that twist coming because I saw him in the movie. In the beginning of the movie, he's just kind of there as like kind of like a background character.
Exactly.
There's no way we're not getting something from him, and we did at the end. I really enjoyed that part of it. But yeah, it was weird to the movie. Like, he is a really big actor, big action star, and we're getting nothing from him right now. And I was happy to see where his kind of character kind of panned out a little bit. But I think it's a really great way to use the live action format for these.
Definitely.
Characters.
My only thing is, because she was, she is an antagonist, but she was sort of the protagonist in this. I'm not 100% sure. And I mentioned this in that little video I did. I'm not 100% sure I could see the character as she's portrayed here doing what she does in 101 Dalmatians.
I agree.
So, but if you're able,
did you see the post-credit scene?
No, there was a post-credit scene.
Yes. I meant to text you last night and ask you if you watched it because. I just kind of have this now kind of, I would say Marvel like Stockholm syndrome now, where I have to I have to check every movie now that I watch to see if there's a post-credit scene, especially in the Disney realm.
Please tell me Maleficent didn't show up out of the shadows.
No,
I'm here to talk to you about the Fantasmic Initiative.
No, I wish that was the case. That would be amazing. But do you want me to tell? I guess we could tell our viewers.
We'll talk about it after the show. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we'll talk about it after the show.
Yeah, make sure you sit through the entire. It's actually like a mid-roll, like a mid-credit scene. It's after kind of the stylized credits.
Yeah, the style.
And then you have like this post-credit scene at the end, which again they're trying to set up a connection to the the 101 Dalmatians, but
Okay.
again, I don't think it works. I don't think it works.
Okay. All right.
And unless they're setting up a whole new universe. But one thing I want to talk about real quick before we end the show is
Yeah.
one thing I really loved about this movie, and I always thought they were comical and interesting characters, is the robbers, Hector,
Horace and Jasper.
Horace and Jasper. Yes, I loved them. They were one of the highlights for me in the movie, and their relationship with Cruella, and even just kind of how they grew up, and how they transformed the movie. I was like, I actually like these guys. In 101 Dalmatians, you're kind of led to like just hate them and just like think they're like these dunces, but they're really great. I think that was one of the best parts of the movie for me, was seeing their relationship with Cruella and just kind of learning more about their personalities and motives. I think were really amazing, So
it really redefined them. And they're actually kind of scary I remember them being kind of scary to me as a little kid in 101 Dalmatians, because I seem to remember this one shot where Jasper is like coming up the stairs, and it's like a dark scene. They're in Hell Hall, or in this film Hellman Hall. And he's coming up the stairs to find the dogs, and for some reason I remember his eyes just being like piercing in the dark, and for some reason that shot just terrified me as like a 5-year-old. To see what they kind of did with the characters, I think is really nice. They really, as I said, they redefined them. Just really good all around. I think for me personally, of these sort of live action adaptations and remakes, this is definitely either my number one or number two. So, yeah. But awesome. I think with that, we're gonna wrap up the show for this week. Matt, if people are looking for more of you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so make sure you follow me on Instagram. I'm Matt Arterbury, or you can find my family vlog on YouTube at Matt and Mary Kate, like I said, on YouTube as well. Make sure you follow my wife too there on Instagram. But yeah, you can find me there. I'm also a recurring panelist on the Pressing Issues podcast with WDWNT. They're found on YouTube as well. You can find them on their website as well at wwnt.com. But yeah, you can find me every Sunday night, or every few Sunday nights, where I'll either be hosting, where I hosted this week, or you can just find me as a normal panelist on that show talking about Disney news as it is breaking.
Wonderful. And if you're looking for me, you can find me on TikTok as Unofficial Disney CEO, and on Instagram as Better Be Mason. Of course, always we're gonna ask if you can take some time, follow us on Instagram. We do have it on the Hubgrass page, and like our page, follow us on your podcast app, be that Spotify, be that Apple. If you do have a minute, leave us a review. That always helps. But that's where we're going to leave it for this week, folks. And there is a great, big, beautiful podcast, and it's just a stream away. We'll see you next time.
See you next time, y'all.